Hello, everybody. Remember us? It's Shane and Todd doing Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast. This is episode number 436, recorded live July 3rd, 2019. Now, the funny thing about that, Shane, is that we act like there's been a big pause, but I'm actually behind in the production. So for the people who download it, there actually won't be. There'll be like, there was no pause at all. These all three came out in like 20 minutes.
Well, at least our viewers have this, right? So we should really just quit ratting ourselves out, quit putting the dates in anything, and just every show came out the exact moment we planned to.
Yep. That would be a good plan. But between vacations and work schedules and all that, it's been a crazy month or so.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because we're both part of that Facebook podcast group, and the regimented schedules and how those guys get all up in arms about this and that. It's always, I think they'd all cry if they really knew kind of our cadence and our love of our audience that just kind of lets us ebb and flow with them as appropriate.
Yeah, I quit paying attention to that group a long time ago. I'm still subscribed, but I don't partake in the craziness much.
I never actually contribute to the craziness, but it's a lot like that local neighborhood group that we've talked about a few times, right? I just read it for the fun. Read it to see
everybody has it. So Shane and I have discussed many times how on Facebook, every town has their little crazy complaining group, and we share stories, and it's oddly similar. My town of 60,000, the things that people complain about in Shane's town of whatever Cincinnati is, very similar personalities and all that. It's very interesting.
It is, yeah. Did you guys have the post about how fireworks are going to be evil? Did you have one about that?
Yes, Iowa has some weird laws. So a couple of years ago, Iowa made fireworks legal. So fireworks had been illegal.
Yep.
Because legitimately 100 years ago, somebody set off some fireworks and it burnt down half a town. So fireworks have been illegal since the Great Spencer, Iowa fire of like 1913 or something. And so we would all just go to Missouri or South Dakota or any number of places and get fireworks. So a few years ago, like 5 years ago, maybe less, Iowa made fireworks legal, but they made them legal to sell. And they've got, you can sell them 2 weeks before the 4th and the beginning of New Year and all that kind of stuff. But what they didn't do, and this might have been on purpose, was they didn't make them universally legal to set off. So now we've got this weird thing, and including in Ames here, it is totally legal to buy fireworks in Ames. So there's a place like a mile from here. I can buy all the fireworks I want, buy one, get 3 free, all that kind of stuff. But it is not legal for me to actually use them in town. So...
No, I get it, right? Because Ohio, we're just still straight up illegal, but pretty much everyone, their brother and their sister and their cat all shoot off fireworks.
Yeah.
And so we had the as predicted post about how you shouldn't shoot them off, right? And all the reasons that you shouldn't shoot off your own personal ones. It scares the birds, it causes them to have heart attacks and fall out of the sky. You should only support professionally done ones. Apparently, professionally done fireworks do not cause bird trauma or any of the other issues.
Loss of limb, yeah.
And then and the lady who started it, right, she said it also freaks out pets, which, I get, right? I understand it.
Yep.
She's like, loud noises like that or like loud cars even freak out my poor dog. But we take him to the racetrack every year with us so he can, I'm like, so wait a minute. So you want none of us to have fun? But the thing that you want to do that has fun, that freaks out your dog, you can't make this up.
Yep. Oh, that's people.
Right there written. She had to write it down so there's no oh my God, lady, come on.
Yep. So on Facebook, you asked a couple days ago about shows that people should watch. So there's a hysterical show. It's on True TV and on Netflix called I'm Sorry. But there's a whole episode on Nextdoor. So not exactly the same thing as Facebook's, but the website Nextdoor was very funny. I don't want to spoil any of it, but same kind of thing.
Yeah, and so maybe that might be a good topic for the show here, right? So I'm struggling, right? So I've powered my way through, Friends 1,000 times, New Girl about 17 times, The Office about 1,000 times, and so we just finished Young and Hungry for the second time, which if you've never seen, you would be dumber for watching it, but it's pretty darn hilarious.
I watched The Young and the Restless when is this like the sequel, The Young and Hungry? No.
No. This is like it's a rom-com, irreverent. It's a very Seinfeld-esque almost about how stupid everything is. But basically, the main character is a tech millionaire, and his chef, who he's got a thing for, the Ross and Rachel kind of dynamic.
Oh, yeah. And what's that on? What platform is that on?
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
So huge fan of that. So we've watched that twice. We watched Park and Recs, which the internet gave us. They told us that was good. So right now we're kind of stuck on what is the next. We will be dumber for watching, but we will love every moment of it. Comedy.
I'm Sorry is only like 2 seasons. It's pretty short. It's like 20 episodes.
Yeah, and I was wrong. I told you I hadn't watched that. We watched the first season.
Okay.
And it was.
So you watched the Next Door episode then, yeah?
Yeah, it was fine. It was.
Yep.
It didn't scratch the itch the way. And I think part of the problem is it wasn't long enough. Lori says, "Hey, why aren't you watching The Ranch?" We watched all The Ranch except this last season, and they just got too real. I don't know. Got a little meh.
Yeah. Yeah. The streaming options have just gotten so great. I remember when Netflix first started doing streaming, there was nothing to watch. Now there's too much to watch.
Yeah.
So it's all been good. But summer's a good time to catch up on some of those things. We've been doing that.
It is because my kids. Do your kids stay up all night? I mean, my kids don't go to bed now until like 9:30. And I'm like, oh my God, go away.
Yes, they do. Yes.
The sun needs to go down. Those kids need to go back to going to bed at 8 or 8:30. So Daddy needs his couch time.
Yeah, I'm somewhat sympathetic. I remember as a kid, I'm an only child, so I didn't have any partners in crime. I could never fall asleep in the summer. Now my kids have 2 other kids that if I don't get all 3 of them knocked out at the same time, then one's keeping the rest up. And yeah, the struggle is real. Should we talk about some other technical Microsoft-y things for the folks who have,
Sure. Which one of these fine technical topics would you like to get into? Like super nerd? You want to go to quasi nerd? Where are you at?
Well, let's start with A. So we just kind of want to put it out there. July 1st is a big date for MVPs around the world because that's when the renewal date is. Microsoft has moved it all to that. And you and I were both renewed here Monday. So congratulations to you.
Well, congrats to you. It was 14 for me. Is it 13 for you, or is it?
It is 14 for me as well.
So because of this change in the system, I still will award over you that I have 9 months more than you, but technically we're on the same cycle now.
We have the same number of awards, yes.
Our cycles have come in sync. We spent some time
if you hang out long enough, I hear that happens. Yeah. So that was cool. Never take that for granted. So that's very exciting that I'm in for another year. Whew. So that's good. And a whole bunch of our friends. Congrats to everybody involved. That's always a fun time.
Yeah, that was good. So.
And I'm kind of screwing up. Normally when this happens, we have to turn our things in. I think we had to have them in by March this time, but I normally hit it real hard right before that. So in February and March, I blog a bunch of things and do a bunch of things, and because I'm worried. But I've actually got a bunch of blog posts now in the can. I published one Monday. I've got another one to publish today. I've just been in a flurry writing things. So one of them that I wrote, and this is a new one, it's kind of an update to a blog post that I wrote a while back, and it's how to securely store credentials in PowerShell.
Yep.
And so, you and I have looked at iterations of that over a while, and a while back you discovered the stored credential or the credential manager module. Okay. And that was life-changing. And I blogged that, and that was the way that I always went to handle credentials inside of Windows. But then the PowerShell folks, the PNP PowerShell folks, in their bid to just take over my PowerShell world, slowly started adding support for that. So like the first thing they did was they added on all of the PNP PowerShell commandlets, and this was a year or more ago, where you put credentials in, you could put in a credential object. So, a new PS object, whatever. Or you could just put the name of a credential in, and it would find it in the credential store, which was super cool. And then here, I think February maybe, they actually went ahead and added stored credential commandlets so that you could use them with other commandlets as well.
So now,
so now there's get PNP stored credential that I can pull and then use with Connect SPO service or Connect Azure AD. Not just PNP stuff. And you can create them so there's new PNP stored credential. So I updated, and I forgot, now that we're talking about it, I forgot to update my old blog post, but I blogged how to do that now with PNP. So now you don't have to have 2 modules installed. If you're already using PNP, you can just do it that way. You don't have to install the credential manager one.
I like it. That's long overdue, right? Because it was always awkward that the best way to do it was some third-party thing you just stole off the internet. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a very popular video. I think that video has like 30,000 views. So people are. It turns out people like to store passwords. Who knew?
That comes up all the time when I do the PowerShell talks. That part is always like I just see people's faces, like you can just kind of see it as they start realizing all the problems that they've had that this solves. It's been and I did a talk for the Mississippi PowerShell user group here a month ago, and we were pre-show doing the pre-show stuff, and I was talking about that, and one of the guys in the chat room was like, I've got this figured out. I've got this way. I do this thing. I create an encrypted file and I pull it out. It's from like. Your world's about to get rocked, buddy, because it's, and sure enough, he's like, oh my God, I had no idea this was there. This was the greatest thing. So it's those moments that are really powerful. And then kind of adjacent to that, today, the new version of the PNP PowerShell came out. So if you use the PNP PowerShell, you can do your update on that. I've got a couple of blog posts that are relevant to that. One is the blog post that lists all the modules that I use and what the current version is. So if you're ever curious if you're behind or if there's a new version, you can go out and check there. And then I've got another blog post that gives you a piece of PowerShell you can just run on your own system, and it will tell you if there are updates out there for your PowerShell.
Nice. So keeping that proud tradition of keeping us all on the right version of SharePoint. Now you're going to keep us all on the right version of PowerShell.
That's the one. So that's the ticket. So it's the same story. It was something that I was already doing for myself. I already needed to keep track of what versions of PowerShell I was using and all that. So I just kind of bundled it up and.
You should pass that over to Vesa and see if he wants to. That seemed the type of thing they'd want to put on their monthly show to kind of help everyone.
Oh yeah,
do a
yeah.
better job, right? I mean, if it works, I mean, it's probably a little shady, but. They'll probably have to rewrite it for you, but at least conceptually, you probably could get them moving in the right way.
I should reach out to him and see that. In the chat room, Mark's asking a couple of things. He's like, if you're using a scheduled task, how do you use that? And like Shane said in the chat room, you just need to store that credential as the user that's going to be running the scheduled task, and then it works. Another question that always comes up about this, and I wish I had mentioned it in the blog post, is how you handle MFA.
Oh.
And really, there are two questions there. How do you handle Microsoft MFA, and how do you handle non-Microsoft MFA? And the way you handle Microsoft MFA is you create an app password. So when you turn MFA on for your tenant and for an account, then you have the opportunity to create an app password. Yep. You create an app password, you store that in the stored credential, and then that works. So that's the answer to how to use Microsoft MFA. And for non-Microsoft MFA, that's totally dependent on what your MFA provider is. I don't know. Some might not be able to do it. Some may have an equivalent to app passwords. I don't know.
And is the Microsoft MFA stuff, that still requires an Azure Premium license, right?
I don't remember. Maybe not. I feel like there have been some change in that in the last year because they really want people to have MFA.
I looked the other day, and it looked like they were trying to push me to a premium trial when I was kind of clicking around on it, but I don't know. Yeah. I got sidetracked by 17 customer calls and never looked again. But
yeah, that may not. So Mark is saying it can be enabled with base AAD. And the other thing was Office 365 had its own MFA option for a while, which was very confusing. So yeah, check that out. MFA is a good idea. I don't use it enough for PowerShell, but it's a good idea.
Speaking of MFA, this is completely tangential, but it reminded me. So ran into someone recently who had a problem with, basically they got an email with, that did bad things to their computer. Mm-hmm. And so the way they figured it out was just because their account got locked, like Office 365 shut down their account from sending out too many emails. So, it's like, hey, you've been compromised. So they went and fixed it, and they didn't think anything of it. And then all of a sudden they came back around like, hey, I'm not getting some emails. And so I went looking, and I searched for the email, and I could find it. But I was like, well, what in the world? And so it turned out that the emails were in the notes portion of Outlook, which I don't think any human beings ever used, ever.
As far as I know, it's completely made up.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, how? I wouldn't even know how to get it there if I wanted it there. And so I was like, all right. I went and looked at the rules. Sure enough, the bad guys had added 3 rules to her Outlook to move emails that came from a whole host of services that would be alerting her
Right.
to put those emails into this notes place. So they weren't deleting them. They were just moving them quietly so that she would never see them, but they would still. So I thought that was really interesting. It was kind of almost neat to see that the bad guys had figured out things like this to start trying to make it even harder to figure out what's going on. So.
Yeah, and so you did not go the way with that I thought you were going to go. I thought the way that you were going to go was after she cleaned it all up and changed her password, they were still able to get in, and it's because they had created an app password for themselves to get back in. But that was...
Yeah, I don't think so. I guess I should go looking for that.
Because I know the bad guys do that from time to time.
But, well, I guess she would have the ability. Yeah, I don't know. That's the problem is that, like, when whatever bad thing happened to her, I wasn't part of the conversation, so
right,
I don't really know if it was just like a one and done thing, or if there's really something terrible sitting on her computer still to this day, but none of the antivirus stuff is catching it. I probably need to spend more time helping her with that, but I just have not. So many hours.
In the chat room, Mark mentions a couple of good Twitter accounts to follow for the security thing. Swift on security is a good one. Leslie Carhart's a good one. Troy Hunt is a good one to follow that just have all kinds of crazy security things that guys like you and I who don't bury our heads in security don't think about, don't catch. Lots of good stuff out there.
Yeah, I just need to grow this company big enough to have an IT person to yell at and be like, hey, you answer all these questions for me.
There you go. One final technical thing that I wanted to talk about was if you're running a recent version of Windows 10, which I've discovered this one is not. The machine that I'm on now is running 1803. And so for those of you that are able to crack the code on which version of Windows is what, the first two numbers are the year, 18, and the second two numbers are the month that it came out, 03. So I'm running a year and a half old version of Windows 10 here on this machine. I never realized. But if you're running a newer version, Microsoft has released the preview or the beta for the Windows Terminal, which is a tabbed terminal interface that you can pull up whatever host you want inside. So a command prompt, PowerShell, Bash, whatever, and it's all in a tabbed interface. So that's kind of cool. I played with that a little bit. It's a little rough around the edges, but I've got a blog post on that coming out. But that's out there. You can get in the Windows Store, and you can install it side by side with whatever, so you don't remove any options when you install it. But it's got some opportunity. I like it.
Yeah, so I'm also on 1803, right? And really, that's just like their last major rev. I mean, they've been still rolling. We've been getting all the updates and stuff. But so just this week, just today, 1903 is now available for me to install. Right, because it's been telling me that 1903, my computer wasn't ready for 1903 yet. It's been like telling me this for weeks now. I think 1903 started shipping back in May, and so my computer is now worthy of 1903.
Yeah, so mine, when I realized, because somebody was, I saw something on Twitter, somebody's like, hey, there's this thing in Windows, you should check it out, and mine didn't do it. I'm like, I wonder if I'm running an old version. I went in and checked, and it said there was an update, so I need to reboot, and that's the problem. I never want to reboot. I got too many things going, but I need to reboot.
Yeah, and I think, though, there is, so it calls out, here, I'll paste it in the chat room real quick. It calls out when it's ready for 1903 separately than all the other updates. So mine's been updating, right? I've been keeping... But 1903 is now like a separate, like, I need to actually go and do it.
Yep, that's what mine says.
Okay,
yep.
Cool. Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Download and install now. Maybe not right.
Sure, you do that. I'll patch XSplit. It won't hurt the shit.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? And it's really tangential to that. I realized today, one of my coworkers, Julie and Derek, were talking about it. In Windows 10, if you hold down the Windows key and hit the period on the QWERTY keyboard, it brings up the emoticon selector. So we've been having a lot of fun with that.
I've been using that for months because I'm an emoticon kind of guy.
You drug me into the memes. I've been enjoying that. Like anytime I tweet now and I don't add a meme, I feel like I'm not doing the entire job. So. And then the problem you're going to have, right? Because once again, you're 9 months behind me as always. But here soon, what you're going to realize is that you get so good at memes that the perfect meme, you know what the perfect meme is, and so you search for it, it's not there. So you're like, I can go make a perfect meme.
But I still cannot figure out this proper cadence for me to make memes and make them show up in the Twitter search.
Oh, gotcha.
So I can make memes. I have a Chewy says good job meme, but basically it's saved as a GIF on my machine so I can attach it. I need some special powers over in Giphy that I don't know how to get to be able to publish them for the whole world.
Well, I look forward to you finding it out, and then 9 months later, me doing it.
It's just so funny when I'm like, my meme game is to the point where I'm like, this meme is hilarious, but not good enough. They should have done this.
Yes. Well, I look forward to that.
So Teams,
all right.
I think that's an easy one real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw a blog post, one of those quiet announcements, but I don't know if you've noticed, but for a long time, because we've been on Teams for so long, we don't realize it. But up until now, if you installed Office 365, the clients, you did not get Teams. Teams was not bundled in. You had to download
Correct.
Teams separately.
Yep.
They just were kind enough to announce that, hey, they're going to take care of that for you. And so now everyone will just magically get Teams on the fly. Like, this is kind of shady, but who cares?
Not where I thought you were going with that. Shady was not the word that I thought was going to come out of your mouth. Glad it did. Not where I thought, I've been using Teams. That's what we use this in Praxis and been using it before that. Still not a fan. Still a whole bunch of things about Teams I just don't like.
I would say so the only real beef, I have two big beefs with Teams right now. Because I use it a lot also, right? Because we use it a lot with external.
Yep.
So one is there's not a Meet Now button.
Yep.
So I think that's just a stupid thing they could fix in 30 seconds that would make me so happy.
Yep.
And the other big one is the fact that if I create a meeting here at Power Apps 911 and invite you, Todd, at some Praxis into my meeting, and then we're trying to share screens or things like that, even though I created the meeting, it is my meeting, your security policies apply.
Yep.
So if you're not smart IT administrator, accidentally flips a switch that says you can't share or you can't give me control, not because they did it on purpose, because they just had no idea what they were doing, is what it's been every time, then it stops our experience. So what do? We hang up, I send you a Skype link, and then you can share your screen with me. It's that, I know what they're trying to do, but they've done it wrong.
Yeah, I think that from a security standpoint, I totally get why my IT should be able to control whether I can share my screen. That makes sense. But yeah, I agree that the implementation is horrible.
Yeah. And worse yet with it is, I get that IT wants to do that, but I mean, we just switch tools and we're good, right? I can go to GoToMeeting and do it. I can do it in Skype. I got 7 ways to do it. So all IT is really doing is forcing me not to use Teams.
Well, yes, but I would say that all security in every aspect of life is nothing more than making it harder for people to do the thing that you don't want them to do. So making it harder for them to share their screen by installing GoToMeeting or whatever, that is all security can ever do. I lock my door knowing full well that somebody can pick the lock, bump key the lock, kick in the door, kick it. But I'm just locking the door just makes it harder for them to do the thing I don't want them to do.
And I completely understand that logic, but that's not what's happening here, right? It's just IT's checking boxes for the sake of it, right? They didn't honestly think they were slowing down, or even making it harder. They're just being annoying because they want to check some boxes.
Just being jerks for the sake of being jerks.
Yes, I mean that's what it boils down to. They're being jerks for the sake of being jerks. They are not. If they were truly trying to protect, I mean, what are you protecting by saying that Todd can't let Shane request control of his screen? What are you really protecting?
Well, I think the screen sharing, I totally see that. So let's say that they've got some great IRM set up and I want to share with you some shady company information, but because of IRM, I can't send you the spreadsheet, I can't whatever, but I can share my screen with you and you can look at the spreadsheet and you can print screen it on your side, something like that. I think that's the thing that the box they're trying to check. You don't have to like it. I get it.
They're just being jerks. They're just
just evil people sitting at home. Oh,
whatever.
funny. So my list of grievances on Teams has nothing to do with any of those things. Those are legitimate grievances. I've bumped up against those. I hate I hate the fact that it's single box. If I could have multiple instances of the client, a lot of my hatred for Teams would ebb. But I get on a thing where, like, if I'm on a conference call and then somebody on my team texts me, and then just trying to figure out what to click, and then my call goes away. And then if any of them are me as a different user, if I click that, then it hangs me up from my call. And man, that is just not a non-starter. Man, it's just so bad. So I end up having to do the thing where I open up a tab and do Teams in the web for some of that stuff, which is completely clumsy and crappy. And then steals my clicking. If I click on something, then it opens in that tab, and I can't share my screen. And it's just...
Yes, I agree. That's completely annoying, but it doesn't make my list.
hate, loathe.
Well, we had the problem. So both Daniel and I, in separate tenants, have had the issue last week where trying to have a Teams conversation, Skype was superseding Teams. And so, like, the messages, like, you're trying to have a conversation back and forth, like half the conversation was in Skype and half of it was in Teams, even though it was one conversation. That was really awkward.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, we both had it in two separate tenants last week. And he was all worried he'd broken something. I'm like, no, we you know.
That's a fair assumption, yeah.
I mean, Daniel probably
That's where I
did.
would have started, yeah.
But no, I mean, I think it's just one of those things. They screwed up. They've rolled. They unscrewed up and never had to even identify that. Yeah, we caused this thing.
Cross the streams in the background and
Yeah, I had
never
another
crossed the
problem with Teams 2 weeks ago. Since you're asking about Teams problems,
Was I?
you were. My phone took over my Teams conversations. So I was on my PC, right? I'm in a Teams window. I said, "Hey Fausto, blah 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 blah," and then when Fausto replied to that conversation I started on my computer, it would only show up on my phone. And then he'd be like, "Why aren't you responding to me?" It's my phone's blowing up. I'm like, "There's nothing to respond to." So I'd type, "Where did you go, Fausto? Why aren't you talking to me?" He would get it, and then he would reply, "I'm right here," and it'd go back to my phone. It was the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah, and it's funny because it shouldn't have done that, but there are times when I would have killed for that behavior because I have Teams open in two spots. One of them's chiming to beat hell, but I don't want it to because I'm taking care of the conversation someplace else. Yeah, there's just so many things that Teams does poorly.
Yeah.
It's so let's talk about something nice and good instead. The OneDrive updates.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you haven't told me about how I found out how great they were without your intervention, so I can't imagine how much you can't wait to tell me about it. So I put this topic in, but I'm gonna let you talk about it because we all know that you really love the OneDrive.
I do love me some OneDrive, and this is for OneDrive Personal.
For pleasure.
OneDrive Consumer, OneDrive for pleasure, not OneDrive for business. It's kind of two big changes, and they made these a couple of weeks ago. The first one was if you have a free OneDrive account, you get more storage now. You get 100 gig, I think. No?
You have to pay for it.
Oh, okay. So if you pay for it, you get more. That's what it was. Okay, yeah. So anyway, there is some scenario where you get twice as much storage as you got before. That's cool. And that is... and we'll talk about this. I guess we'll talk about it now. That is one of those problems that all of these cloud services have had is how to grow. So back in the day, you would get so much for free, but then you could spend more to get, 100 gig, or I can't even remember what the limits are. But they never grew past that. But yet the things that people stored in there, the types of things got more numerous, and then the size of the things that they stored got more numerous. And the storage didn't ever expand. And so they started getting full. And that I'm glad to see they're kind of bumping this up a little bit. And I was talking to somebody at Microsoft about that a while back, and they said it's about money, which of course makes perfect sense. You and I are both stockholders of Microsoft, so I want them to manage my money well. But basically they were saying for the people that buy 1 terabyte, they don't use 1 terabyte. Because of the way it stair steps. So you're paying for 1 terabyte, but you're only using 500 gig or 800 gig or whatever. But when people pay for more than 1 terabyte, it's because they need to use more than 1 terabyte. So the cost per gigabyte for Microsoft is non-linear, and they just hadn't figured out a way yet to to make that math work out. And so the growing has been tough, and that's been for everybody. It's not just Microsoft, that's Google and Dropbox and all those people. So I'm glad to see that they're starting to make progress towards that, because Dropbox, there are things that I would have, when I was still using it, would have stored there, but ran out of space and just couldn't. And OneDrive is getting there. So I'm glad to do that. The other big one was they introduced us to the personal vault. And I thought this personal vault was a really great idea, but a bunch of people on the web initially were not fans of it.
Which is weird.
Yeah. So the idea behind the personal vault is obviously you need a username and a password to get into OneDrive, and that's on the computer, on your phone, whatever. And that's not changed. Everything that was secure before is as secure as it is now, is the same level of security now. But then they added this new thing, this personal vault, which is a folder inside of OneDrive that you have to do a second authentication for, and that authentication times out. So you can have OneDrive, store your password or whatever on your phone, so you never have to type your OneDrive password on your phone. But then to get into the personal vault, then you need to do a fingerprint or type a password in, and then it's only good for half an hour or something like that. And then it locks itself back up, and you can still get into OneDrive, but you can't get into the personal vault. Thought that was great. It's a great idea.
Yep.
I couldn't imagine anybody not being happy with that. But yet the internet never fails to deliver. People are like, well, why isn't my stuff secure already? Why do I need this extra level of security? Are you telling me the stuff that I've got in OneDrive now is not secure? Like, yes, that's exactly what they're saying. Yes,
Yeah, all your other files are out there in plain text for anyone to download ever.
I'm reading all your recipes right now.
Oh, yeah, it's the vault is a hard one to position, though. I mean, I get the problem, right? Because I've always felt like OneDrive was very secure, so. But I totally understood, because I have a brain apparently, that this idea of the vault is, once again, one more lock on top of this, right? Because you're completely right. If you have my phone today, you can get into my OneDrive and do all the things you want, right? Boo, 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 there it all is, because it's all seamlessly authenticated in the background, so you don't have to think about it. Whereas if you want to put in the vault or get into the vault, you have to not only have my phone that is already logged in, but then you need, like you said, my thumbprint or my nose or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think probably the reason that this didn't offend me, and the iPhone might have the same thing, but Samsung phones have always had a personal vault. So, to get into my phone, you have to type in my password or put on my thumb or whatever. And then you can get to my documents, you get to my OneDrive or whatever. But then there's also this private mode where you can have apps installed and documents and whatever that are above and beyond that. So to get in there, it's extra special. I mean, it's the same thing, but it's built into the phone, not in. So I guess for whatever reason, Samsung phones have had that for years. This just seemed like the OneDrive version of that, and so maybe that's why it didn't offend me, because I was already thinking about that.
I don't think the iPhone, as best I know, does not have that idea that I can say this app has an extra layer of security.
Yeah. So for the Samsung, and I've only poked at it. I don't actually use it, but from what I understand, you can have documents in there, photos in there, or applications installed that only show up in there. So, for instance, if I wanted to hide the fact that I used OneDrive, I could install it into there, and then if somebody got into my phone, they couldn't even see that I had OneDrive installed until they got into the Vault thing. But I don't use it much. I don't use it at all, actually. I've only played with it.
Yeah, now I do know on iOS that some people have fake apps, right? So like it shows the calculator and then you log into it and yeah.
And it's OneDrive.
But that's a different story. Yeah, and on the storage stuff, believe it or not, I've been waiting on this for a long time. So I'm a very big user of OneDrive for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been at the 50 gig limit for forever. And so I've been like weeding out content bit by bit to stay under that number. And so them changing it so that, now my $1.99 every month gets me 100 gigs was a really big deal to me. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I use a lot of OneDrive, but I'm going to look and see what so I get a terabyte with an Office 365 home subscription.
Yep.
And then I've got a couple of little add-ons to that.
Yeah, so yeah, you are in that group, right? And so the problem I have is I don't want to sign up for an Office 365 home subscription because I have all these business ones running around. So what I really need to do is stop storing so much of my personal and move it over to my Office 365 for business, where I already have all this free space, but that seems like so much work.
So I will tell you, I have both. And so my OneDrive for pleasure is logged in as my Hotmail account, and so that is my Office 365 home. And then my, OneDrive for business is my whatever. I have no problems keeping them managed together.
Oh, I have no problems with it. I just don't want to pay for OneDrive. I don't want to take my personal and change it to an Office 365 personal subscription just to get more storage space.
Why not?
Because I don't want to pay $100 a month for more storage space. I don't need Office 365 personal.
Well, it's not $100 a month. So I have Office
$100 a year. Sorry, I don't want to pay $100 a year for it.
Well, you're already paying $25, right?
Yeah, but I mean, what would I do? What's the other $75 get me other than
the storage? The thing that you want.
I don't want to pay $75 for a terabyte of storage.
I mean, I guess I have, because I think Dropbox was like $100 a year for a terabyte of storage or something like that. So
yeah,
the other thing I will tell you is the Office 365, and I guess there's two things here. There's Office 365 Personal, which is you, and then there's Office 365 Home, which is you and 4 of your home people. And I've got the home one, but I think you can get it way cheaper than $100 a year, the personal. So I would look into that. Also, if you know anybody that works at Microsoft, they have the friends and family thing. They can get you subscriptions. That's how I keep mine hydrated. So look into that. There might be cheaper ways to get that terabyte.
I'm just excited. I got 115 now, so maybe a few years. And I mean, honestly, a lot of the stuff that's in my OneDrive for pleasure is business stuff anyway. It's been the most convenient place to store stuff for a long time. So I need to just move that content out of there and into.
Yeah. So before this, no. So what do you get for free with OneDrive?
We think it's 5 gigs.
Okay.
It's
and
a
then
very small number.
Okay, and then if you pay $2 a month, that used to get you up to 50, and now it gets you 100.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have way over a terabyte because I have the terabyte I'm paying for, and then some other bonus things.
Oh yeah, I have a 15 gig bonus thing also. So technically I have 115 gigs, which I'm using 59% of right now.
Yeah. But the Office 365 personal or home. So for personal, it gives you the storage and the Office apps. Home gives you and 4 of your people the storage and the Office apps. So I use that to keep my family legal with Office. So in my home is, my parents, my in-laws. So everybody gets all the Office stuff. Everybody gets OneDrive. If I need to share pictures of the kids, it goes into the OneDrive that I'm paying for them or for them.
Yeah, see, so Nicola has all her computers have our business stuff on it, so that's normal. And our kids don't use Word and Excel yet, so darn public schools.
Yeah. But no, it's good. So I'm glad to see OneDrive. OneDrive it's been kind of a roller coaster. It was really, really, really horrible for a while. And then they fixed it, and it was super spectacular for a while. And then they kind of sat on their laurels, and it got to be less spectacular. And now they're starting to ramp back up. So that's good. I'm glad to see it. I like that product. Well, so we should probably wind it down. You got a couple of things to talk about. Let's hit those.
Yeah, I mean, so the easy ones are the Power Apps AI videos. So I put out a couple of those. We've been talking a lot about that. So I went ahead and made a couple. So there's one on the business card scanner. I mean, it literally takes no effort to scan and extract details from business card. Woohoo! This is a video how to use that. And then the Power Apps object detector, where we can take pictures of Chewies or other, items, hardware, physical things, people, and teach the model to identify those people and things. So, been pretty cool. So you got a video in there that's not the overview video that everyone else did. It's here's how you actually go and build an app, train the model. Here's the shortcomings. Here's what it really looks like to build one of these in production. Because I have but I have a few customers who want to go deep in this stuff. So I've had to do a bunch of research there. So.
Yeah, that's good. And I think those applicable examples are so much more valuable than just the canned demos.
Yeah, and I think, the other big thing is, showing, so I used, Chewie and his all the different animals, which is silly, but at the same time they're very complex objects. They're all very similar shaped and sized. Right, the donkey and the horse, I mean, are almost identical. And so showing all the iterations I had to go through to get the model to understand them I thought was pretty valuable. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, so one of them you got in here is Cloudflare taking down the internet. So there's a bunch of links on that. We'll put links in the show notes and all that. I saw something today. It's completely unsubstantiated. Cloudflare does a bunch of network things, DNS and caching and all that. And they had a problem yesterday and it took down a bunch of really big sites. And it turns out the report that I saw this morning was that was caused by one bad regex statement that was in a script somewhere that somebody ran. And that just triggers a bunch of my things. I hate testing in production. I hate regex. So I'm like, yes, all of those are bad. And yes.
yeah, and this has been weird though, right? I mean, if you think about over the last 6 months or so, we've had a lot of these type of outages where someone like a back-end provider like that went down, or a section of it went down. And so it's like, because the internet's so interconnected and so many people depend on so many different services, I think the way I discovered it was Discord was down, right?
Yeah.
So Discord was complaining that the internet was broken. So I'm like, what the hell? The internet's not broken. But Discord was really saying my internet, which is Cloudflare, is broken. Was it Verizon or Comcast? One of them had a pretty large East Coast regional outage that caused a bunch of chaos. And it's like, for some people, the internet was down, and for other people, it's like, no, the internet's just fine. But so it's become a new world, right? When a website doesn't work, now all of a sudden I'm not immediately jumping to, oh my God, Discord is broken. I'm looking for the bigger, is it Coinbase, right? I think one of the Bitcoin companies was reporting $20 prices because their data was coming back bad because of a Cloudflare issue. And it's the interconnectivity of all of it is making it really more difficult to be like, this website sucks.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have been doing the internet long enough that I remember one of the ways that the internet was supposed to be better was that it was redundant and there were multiple paths to things. And if there was ever a nuclear attack and it took out a big chunk that the internet could route around it, yeah, now one bad regex statement takes down half the internet. And that seems crazy.
Yeah, but it's this world we live in, right? There's a bunch of these little single points. And it's unfair to call them single points of failure, but if too many people use a service, right? I mean, if Azure, just ceased and existed, right? They walked in and like, just turn it all off, right? I mean, the world would stop working, but I mean, like my company would be down.
Yeah.
But so there's this, certain things have become too big to fail, or when they do fail, man, we feel a lot.
Yeah, and it definitely, as a technical guy, I often ask myself how non-technical people navigate the world these days because there's just so much of this kind of thing. And this is one of them. Like when internet services stop working, now I'm all doing pings and I'm doing NS lookups and I'm like, oh, the DNS record here is bad. I'll point everybody to Google and and I can work around a lot of those. But yeah, for the average person, like I don't even know how that. Yeah.
This is why when I talk to small businesses especially, right, I try to explain to them, you're a technology company. You just can't not be a technology company. So you can't be like, computers, blah, 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 right? You've got to embrace them. You've got to have someone who can understand and speak it because you can't exist in this world these days without at least understanding some tech.
Yep, it's true. Or apparently without understanding regex, have an IT admin job.
Regex. I couldn't write a regex statement right now if you put a gun to my head.
No, God, no. Lord, no.
Let me go to Google. I got it. Hang on.
Yep. All right. Well, we should wrap this up.
Okay.
As I'm looking at the notes, I don't see anything in the community corner. I know Dan Christian's got a SharePoint Saturday down there somewhere in August or something because somebody's got one around my wife's birthday, like in Charlotte. I think.
Yeah, I think Dan's is in Charlotte. And I think Power Apps 911 is sponsoring it. Good job, Power Apps 911.
Yeah, shit. SharePoint Saturday, New England is out there. I will not be at that one because it's around when school starts. So go to that one, but don't expect to see me there. I have signed up for Ignite, so I will be there. I forget the dates on that.
Oh, I haven't even. I need to think. I haven't thought about Ignite at all. I need to.
Yep, I'm signed up for that.
So you're paying? Like you signed up? Signed up?
I'm not paying. I've got a corporate sugar daddy.
Oh,
So,
you scammed those poor people. I see.
yes. I did get the word that I will be going back to Slovenia in November for the Thrive conference. So I'm very excited about that. What do you got going on?
Right now, the only thing on my calendar is in October, I'll be in Orlando for the Power Platform User Group Summit, whatever that thing is. So yeah, I've got that, but I'm gonna go look at Ignite. I refuse to pay. We know about that, but
You do.
I will. I need to start working on finagling someone else to pay for that. Would your sugar daddy like to sponsor a homeless child that needs to go to?
That's really between you and him. I don't know how many of those details I want to get in the middle of, but
Well, it's Julie the sugar mama, right? She's in charge. If I convince Julie, she would. Yeah, right? Mark would just have to do it.
that is true. You don't have to convince Mark. If you convince Julie, you're good to go. Yeah.
And then maybe what I'll do is I'll start working on Derek, get Derek to get excited about the idea, have Derek push it to Julie, and have Julie. There, see how I can climb your company ladder.
I welcome you to do it. I would love to see you there. So I think that's it. So thanks everybody. As far as I know, we'll be back next week. I don't have anything crazy going on. Check my schedule. No, other than my kids having swim lessons.
I'm on vacation next week.
Oh, you are.
I will be in Chicago. I guess I shouldn't tell people I'm going on vacation, but I'll be in Chicago.
Nobody cares. What are you doing in Chicago?
We're just taking the kids up there. So the nanny that they had for like the first 5 years of their life, she moved up there.
I remember her. Yeah.
So we're gonna go up there for 3 or 4 days, and then
what? At that point, you're only like 6 hours from my house. So.
Well, I mean, maybe I should just add that in because I found out already that this vacation I agreed to. Now I can probably just say this on the show, right? My crazy mother-in-law has decided that she's going to host a birthday party for her husband. And so then now on our way back from Chicago, instead of me coming home to my house where I want to be, I have to go to their house for a couple days. So, I mean, why not just, do this number and go through your house at the same time? I mean,
Superchargers the whole way. So you just take the Tesla, drive yourself, and then.
Yeah, the stupid minivan will probably take it because.
Well, but they take the minivan, you take the Tesla.
So the kids had the idea of us taking 2 cars. So yeah, there you go. Well, and where we're staying, I mean, you could just you make a couple of day family vacation out of it and come.
If we didn't just come back from vacation,
we're gonna stay at a little. Well, we'll talk about this off the air, but it's it'd be a fun time for your kids where we're staying.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll close it down. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Glad to see you guys haven't forgotten about us in the last few weeks, and I'll try to get this produced just as quickly as I can. Bye, everybody.